We Like You. My name's Joe.
My name's Ed.
And we are Game Soup, and we developed a game recently, a game jam, and we called it HALLOW Night, and we're going to be showing it to you right now. It was developed using the Godot engine, and it is released right now on itch.io for free. You can check out the link in the description below if you want to play the game before watching us give our commentary on it. We're going to be taking it pretty slow when we do our commentary on it because we want to discuss all the reasons why we made certain decisions, and the game is very, very short, which you'll notice if you've played it before you watch the video. So we're gonna give it a shot here, and but we should probably also talk about the title. Why is it called HALLOW Night? Well, one reason is because we thought it was freaking funny, but another reason is the game is somewhat Halloween themed. So we wanted to go with Halloween something or Hallow something, right? That was one of our ideas for naming the game. We had several other ideas for the name of the game. One of them was Slasher House, which is a play on a classic game series called Splatterhouse. But we had others that were not knockoffs of other games. But this was the one we went with because it made us laugh the most. Mm-hmm. So that's why we went with it. And it's a game jam. It doesn't really matter that much what you call it. So I didn't spend that much time designing the logo either. You can tell that, but I had fun designing it, so I hope that comes through. Also on the title screen here, we've got two characters that we specifically designed for this game. On the left is our main player character, and on the right is our pacer enemy. And I probably spent way too much time on it because this artwork is basically finished. Besides maybe adding some shading or some highlights to them, I might do that. But yeah, it's pretty much, they're pretty much finished.
Yeah, the goal of this project was about 50 hours as game jam style, and right. I think both of us, we both tend to get a little more detailed than maybe we should to budget our time. But I think this turned out really well because of that. Like, I think this art is fantastic. I think this is maybe the best art I've seen from you.
For the time that we put into it,
I really dig it.
I was pretty happy with it, and I'll go ahead and say I spent 80 hours for my part working on this game. I did a lot of the level design. I'd say we shared the level design about 50-50, but yeah, I did a lot of that, and I did a lot of artwork for the game, and a lot of play testing. And Ed did the coding. You can see, and Ed did the music, so you can see on the bottom. That's who did what parts. You can see the controls for the game. What else is there to say? I don't think there's really much else to say about the title screen. So we're just going to head into the game. And like I said, we are going to be taking it a little bit slow. So the game has some pretty simple movement. You can see the player jumps. The player jump is set to 4 grid squares high. A little bit higher than 4 grid squares. So that's how we measured the platforming in the game. You usually want to decide the character's jump height before you start designing the world. And you can notice that we have somewhat of a 3D effect on the floors here. The platform art in the game obviously is very, very rough. That was done with not too much intent to consider this to be finished. But the animation of the characters and the character drawings are for the most part finished. However, I didn't mention this before, but the run animation is only 4 frames. The final version would be 8 frames, and I actually roughed it out to be 8 frames, but I didn't make finished artwork of all the in-between frames because I just didn't want to take the time to do it. We'd already spent so much time on it already. The background is just a repeating background that you see in every room. There's no foreground or background parallax art in any of the rooms, which would be, if we fleshed out the game, we would definitely try to make it look a lot more interesting. But I did try to balance out the color schemes and the values in the game so that the right things pop and you can tell what's happening. And I think we accomplished that pretty well. I did design a lot of the artwork on a mock-up, which we might show that file later on. We might do a separate segment where we go over some of the artwork in the game. But I just wanted to address that stuff up front. And all the platform art, it is not a tile set. It's actually all hand-drawn. But I did a lot of copy pasting, and you can even see it on this screen right here. So I basically was just copy pasting everything. And the way that we made the rooms was I made stickers. We called them stickers, but the stickers were 1920 by 1088, which is a room size in the game. And we just took all the platforms within that sticker and just made a PNG of that. And then we just stapled those next to each other. And it's pretty seamless, and you wouldn't do that for a final version of a game. You would probably, for instance, like this platform that I'm standing on, this would be a single piece of artwork, and you would place it in the engine, in the editor, and you would do it that way.
Because
so
if you
that
ever had
could-
to change
if
it.
you ever had to change something, yeah, you don't want to have to go back into your image editor and then change that and then change the platforming in the game. That's gonna cause a lot of errors, probably a lot of bugs, and just a lot of headaches.
Yeah,
But the
for
way that we
sure.
did it for this was because the game was so small. We just copied each room and made it its own file. So that's how we did the artwork there. So this is the first room. We're just showing the player that they can jump, essentially. That's it. And we're showing them you can get coins. The coins lead the player along. Nothing too complicated there. And the coins are sort of a side, the side quest of the game. And it tells you how many coins you got at the end of the game. So we're going to introduce our players to the first enemy of the game here. It's our pacer. And we introduce him in a way so that the player doesn't just rush into the room and immediately fall in here. So we put like 6 grid squares of space, so the player's going to notice, oh, there's an enemy there, and it's in an extremely safe position. And you're going to see our wonderful attack now, our wonderful weapon that this was the idea for the game that we based it around. It's the Crusagram from Castlevania Symphony of the Night. It is a direct ripoff of the Crusagram from Castlevania Symphony of the Night. Well, should we call it a ripoff?
Yeah,
it's an homage.
It's a proud ripoff,
We'll
I would
call
say.
it a proud homage ripoff.
Yeah.
We'll call it all those things. But it's animated and functions essentially exactly like Crusagram does in Castlevania Symphony of the Night. Now, I drew 4 different slash animations that do play randomly here.
Yeah, you can't even tell. They're so fast, but it looks smooth.
And they don't look as much like they don't really look that much like the Crusagram animation. I wasn't like copying the exact animation, but I made 2 of them horizontal and 2 of them vertical looking though. So there's a little bit of variety there. And so the attack actually hits. Oh, so what it does when you do the attack is it creates a hitbox directly in front of the player that is roughly, it's a box that's about as big as that would encompass these slashes happening, a little bit bigger just to give the player a little bit of a benefit, so that the game feels a little bit better. And each animation actually attacks on the second frame. There are 5 drawn frames of the animation. So the first frame holds for 1 frame out of 60 frames of if we're recording at 60 frames a second, then the first frame holds for 1 frame. The second frame holds for 2 frames. I just felt like it looked a little bit better. That's when the attack actually happens. And then the 3rd, 4th, and 5th frame, the 3rd, 4th, and 5th drawing of the animation, I would say, are each held for 1 frame. So in total, each one of these slashes is 6 frames at 60 frames a second.
I think you did a great job. This was Joe's idea to do a Crusagram themed game, and it was something that gave us a complete and realized direction for this game, what we should be doing with it, and that kind of like basically put everything else in place, in terms of how we were going to design it, and we finally had something that we knew we were going to be able to work around and play with. So I think you did a fantastic job, and also like your meticulous attention to detail in recreating the Crusagram.
Yeah, it was very important to me to make not necessarily to copy it exactly, but to make it feel good. And we it's very close, if not exactly copied from how Crusagram behaves in Castlevania Symphony of the Night. And yeah, it feels really good. If you guys have played this and before watching us play it, we hope that you agree. But if you do have any suggestions or ideas on how we could have done the Crusagram better, do let us know. So the skull pit down here, this is something that we did in Game 3, and it's also there's other platformers that do that. The skull over the pit is kind of a trope, but it's nothing really says death like a skull. There's not really anything too creative that we would want to do with this, because we want it to read well for the player, and that is reused art from Game 3 for that little skull there. And we didn't spend too much time on it, but we just wanted to make sure that the player understood that there are bottomless pits and they're going to be marked as skulls. There are non-bottomless pits later on in the game that are pretty obvious that you can jump down, and they don't have those skulls there. We also have jump through platforms. There are not fall through platforms. You can't fall through these because we'd have to teach the player how to fall through, and it's just not necessary. We designed the game around not needing to have to fall through platforms. If we were going to expand the game, we would certainly add fall through and teach the player how to do it. But just for this short little game, it's not necessary. So
one dimension of that, that I maybe could say is that not only did we not want to do fall through platforms, but also I don't know how to do it in Godot, this is my first project in Godot. So should I not have said that?
No, you can say. I mean, yeah, we did take some shortcuts because we wanted to finish.
Yeah.
We wanted to finish the game within a reasonable amount of time, and I think, despite the fact that we went over our initial 50-hour limit, we each had 50 hour. We each wanted to limit ourselves to 50 hours, but we did break it by a lot. But despite that, I think we did manage to keep the game within scope. We didn't add a bunch of power-ups. We didn't add a bunch of keys. We didn't add any progression. It really is just a jump and an attack, essentially, is what there is. There's no double jump like we could have, knowing us, we could have very easily said, why don't we just add a double jump? But that would have changed everything. It would have taken us a dozen extra hours probably if we added a double jump. Everything that you think is going to take only an hour or only half an hour to add to a game is it just never works that way. It just never does. So the way that we decided to design the enemy encounters and how we introduce them to the player in what order is that we wanted to show an easy version of the enemy and then a hard version of the enemy. So this is for the pacer. Obviously, we saw the pacer earlier, that it was obviously very easy, just to show how the character behaves. And now we see it's definitely a lot harder. So we have to jump up into here.
Get murdered.
We have to attack them. Well, I actually almost got hit there.
Yeah, you did.
And we've got a dispatch of 6 of them in a row. And
the game is not too easy by any means. I like just playing through it this morning. I did manage to get hit a couple times just trying to play it. So it's got some challenge, you know. So we've got the easy and hard versions of those enemies. I think that's a decent formula to work from. I think again, that was your idea. I think you did a great job.
I mean, that's not. I think that's kind of standard though for most games, right? You want to show them an easy version and then a little bit harder version of the same enemy. But we did have a strict level design flow document that we kept. So we wanted to first show the player how to jump, then we wanted to show them pacer, then a hard version of the pacer, and then we wanted to show them that there are side paths in the game, which you just saw us do. We got the 4 coins there. Then we wanted to show them the next kind of enemy. So let's do that. So here we are. This was Ed's idea. He wanted to. I was trying to figure out a way that we could put this pumpkin in a place where the player wasn't going to get hurt by it very easily, but I had pumpkin always facing towards the player, so the player could get hurt by it. But Ed had the brilliant idea to just turn it around. So that's what we did. So he attacks nothing here, but you get to see how he behaves. He shoots fire, so we kill him. And then here's the slightly hard version of him where we've got a dispatch of him by jumping up and attacking him. You can actually do that a lot faster, but all right. So then we've got another. This wasn't exactly following our document, but we did have a little bit harder version of a pacer here, where you have to battle him on his own turf, on his own little platform here. He can knock you into the pit if you're not careful. So we just had a little platforming mixed with pacer there, just because we thought it was. We thought that would just be an interesting and reasonable path along the difficulty curve of the game.
So here we are in this room, and I think this is, I said this before, this is my favorite room in the game. This is probably my favorite screen in the game, for many reasons. I know we mentioned this. This is a Halloween-themed game, so we don't want everything to just be out in the open. Some things should be surprises, right? So
should we show them the surprise?
We should, Leah, go forward here.
All right, here we go.
Oh, it's a bird! So this is the bird from Game 3, same artwork. And, they start off invisible, because originally they were not invisible. That is our third enemy type, by the way. That is all 3 of them.
Yeah, Ed had the idea to make the birds be invisible before they detect you. And originally he was just floating here, and he would just start floating at you once you got within his detection radius, which is about here, about the same spot. And it required a small amount of redesigning of the levels, but I think it was actually a really good idea to do it that way, and it made the game feel a little. Well, I don't necessarily want to say scarier, but it made it more surprising and amusing, I think, to see where these birds pop out at. And it leaves a lot more, it gives a lot of design space. Like I have so many ideas of how we could design levels, even within this very small framework that we've created with the character that has very limited moveset and only 3 enemies. We could make so much with this. We could make a very large game with this that would probably remain interesting throughout most of it, at least. So that was the easy version of the floater enemy. And you're going to see what happens when we drop down here.
Just surrounded.
We are ambushed.
Yeah, I think this room and this particular section, one of my favorites. I love the idea that you get surrounded right away. You have a split second to make a decision about where you want to go to and how you want to prepare to attack all these guys or run away.
Yeah, if you decide to run away, you are quickly ambushed by the ones in the
I
front.
love that.
You get sandwiched there, and you can see I even took a hit there.
That's a great way to teach you that maybe you don't want to run away.
And so, this room took a long time to design. I did a lot of balance passes through this room. This room took several hours to design. You'll see why. You'll see another reason why in the top section of the room as well. But that was part of it, definitely, was trying to engineer that so that it would be exciting but also fair when the player drops down that one corridor there, that shaft. So now we've got another hard version of the shooter here.
We started to mix in a little bit of platforming challenge here, which is the fourth part of the three enemy situation. We want to mix them together in interesting ways, but also provide interesting platforming challenges, which I guess the side paths also accomplish.
Yeah, this is another side path. This is probably the hardest side path in the game. So now, obviously, we've got some shooters at the end of this hallway here, and they are shooting in a way that is quite precarious for our player to get through, but also very exciting and satisfying to make our way through.
Now, did you have to specifically engineer those fireballs to attack at that interval the way they do?
No, I didn't change any parameters of the enemies themselves. I just moved the enemies. It took several passes, though, to figure out exactly what formation of fireballs was going to be exciting, like I said, but also still be fair.
Now, what could this guy be guarding?
So we're going to drop down here, and you're going to see yet another surprise.
Oh, God.
Oh, no, it's more birds.
Yeah, that one really, it sneaks up on you. I mean, they're right next to you when they spawn.
So we got a bunch of coins. We decided that was a pretty tough segment, so we gave the player a lot of coins in that case.
Well earned. These coins that do nothing.
Now, this pile of trash here was actually just to block the one fireball that's going across here so that it does not hit the player while they're trying to go across this platform here and also battling the birds. We didn't want that all to be happening at the same time.
Yeah, I guess I could say it. One of the small wish list things we had for the game, and there are hundreds of them probably, or at least tens of them that I can think of right now. But one of them was we don't want the shooters to shoot off screen before they've been seen by the player.
Right, and in some situations. But in some situations, we do want them to, like, for instance, this segment
like up here for sure.
Up here we want them to be. So we'd probably want it to be some kind of a toggle where some of those pumpkin shooter enemies would not shoot at you until you actually saw them on screen.
But you know what? I think this was the correct choice. Instead of trying to change the way the enemies are designed in code or in the editor, the way to do it was just to put a piece of trash there. That was the solution. I think that's the best solution.
Yeah, that was the solution. Yeah, it didn't take very long to draw. So we've got another combination room here. You'll see it's the floaters combined with one of the other enemy types. It's the pacers.
This room does remind me a lot of similar rooms in other Metroidvanias. This is like a classic, like a classic formation of platforms.
It's always fun to jump up this kind of diagonally designed platform. I think there's something aesthetic about it. Yeah, and also just fun.
And I think this room does offer a significant challenge. You've got pacers going left and right, and these birds just are completely ignoring all the terrain. So it kind of forces you to, if you go too quickly here, you can...
Yeah, you do have to go slowly.
Yeah, you can definitely get caught up.
So it might not be necessarily... Yeah, if you wanted it to be maximum challenge, it's not that challenging. It mainly just tests your patience. This room. So... I mean, I don't know if I could say, I don't want to necessarily say that another design would be better, but if you wanted to test the player fighting the floaters and the pacers at the same time, maybe we could have done it in a more precarious way that would have been more exciting for the player. But this is what we wound up doing. Well, this is what we wound up with, and so we didn't want to spend too much more time on it. So yeah, I think what we did was pretty fine.
I also like this room. You did some surgery on this room. This was
Ed's design initially, and it was. I mean, he had drawn it on paper, and I recreated it in game, and it needed some balancing. But this was Ed's idea. This rise up here while trying to dodge these pumpkins, and you'll see what else we have to deal with coming up. But I wanted to take just a second to talk about the order of how we designed everything. We designed how we did all the level design. We designed the levels either on paper or in my case I used Clip Studio. But either way, you just need Ed used graph paper and I used Clip Studio with a grid, and we just designed levels that we thought would work. and we showed them to each other, and we each had several different versions for each room and each different kind of challenge that we wanted the player to go through, like the easy and hard versions of each enemy, like we described earlier. And we kind of pieced them together. It was about, it was pretty much 50-50 exactly whose ideas we used in which room, because Ed had some better ideas for some rooms, I had some better ideas for others, and we combined them together, and then we built them in Godot after we had drawn them on paper, and then we tested them out in Godot, and we just had none of the platforms were drawn. We just had just the collision boxes were in here. And after we had done all of our balance passes, all of our tweaks, then I screenshotted all of our room designs. I put them in Clip Studio, and then I drew all the platforms on top, and then we created the stickers, as we called them, to place on top of the collision. And so that's why it looks like what it looks like now. So we're going to see what kind of surprises Ed had in store for us here.
Well, there's one.
We've got a bird, and then we've got to platform our way through here, and then, oh no, three more birds up here. So now we're stuck in between these two sets of pumpkin shooters attacking us while having to dispatch of 3 birds.
There you go.
And we threw some coins behind this one over here so that this was going to be hard to do. And this is pretty much the only way to do this. Maybe it's not. You could probably actually just jump up onto that platform. Oh shoot, I missed the jump. But you could probably just actually jump up onto that platform and hit him right in the face if you time it just right.
Yeah.
And not take any damage from the fireball if you time it just right.
Well, you earned your reward of 9 coins. Well played. And more coins.
And now we've got a floater-only test here.
I also like that surprise. I think every time those birds appear and just swarm, it gets my heart racing. No, I like it. I like it quite a lot.
One of the final additions, actually, that we made to the game was putting those coins on the left side here and on the right side. Because originally, you could just, if you knew what was going on, you could drop down here and then just jump right through those birds and exit. But we wanted the player to actually have to fight the birds, so we put some coins over here. So if you're not doing a completionist run, this room's actually very easy. You just drop down and then jump once, and then you can exit. So this is the final actual challenging room of the game. We did say it was a short game, and we weren't lying. So you are going to see something as we collect these coins that might be a big surprise if you haven't played the game yet. We lied. There's actually a 4th enemy type. It's a giant bird. So this guy, he takes a lot of hits. I probably should have been attacking him earlier because we did manage to kill him. But yeah, it wasn't very much extra work. Ed had the idea to throw in a giant version of that enemy, and we had ideas for giant versions of the other enemies, but I think this one was probably going to be the easiest one to implement and probably the most fun.
And yeah, very funny. For some reason, I just love the idea of one of these birds just lumbering extremely slowly, just hurtling towards you slowly.
And you don't know how many hit points he has, and you actually can't exit the room, so it's very scary.
Yeah.
And in the middle of that, we also originally this room was just going to be a final platforming test with no real punishment except for a walk of shame at the bottom. You just have to restart it if you mess up. But we decided to add the bird to it, or should I say, birds.
Oh.
So now we have a slightly harder version of the boss bird here.
I think this one's even bigger. I gave it a lower voice. You can change the pitch.
Oh, okay.
I think this one is
slightly
slightly
bigger. It was a
bigger.
little bit bigger.
Yeah.
Yeah, you might be right.
I love that art, and you've got the green and red behind him. Gives him a strange look.
That was a mistake.
That was a mistake?
That was actually a mistake.
I think it looks great.
Those green and red behind those the green and red color behind him was actually from the onion skin. For whatever reason, Clip Studio, I didn't think it would export the onion skin from the file, but for whatever reason I had the onion skin on and decided that would be a good idea to export that as well. I don't really know why it did it, but I thought that it looked cool and I didn't want to re-export it, so we just left it in.
It looks like a deliberate effect. You had me. Did you get all the coins? You might have gotten all the coins in the game.
I think we got all the coins up to this point. Yeah, I was trying to do that. So yeah, that was our final platforming test. It is pretty hard, especially to do with keyboard. I hate playing these kind of games with keyboard, so we do recommend if you do play this afterwards, after watching this, that you use the controller, please. So you get a bunch of coins, and you're done the level, right?
You just walk into the exit, and then you're done.
Or we could do something really clever called jump over the exit. And there's some extra coins back here.
Haha.
It's a secret. It's a secret. But if you watch to this point, you deserve it. You deserve to see that secret. So Yeah, we made a funny little exit here, and if you run into the door, you win the game.
You've done it.
This is the ending.
I love this. I love this conversation that the son is having. Yeah.
So it took us 22 minutes. This is the longest run of this game I've ever had.
Yeah. But you got all the coins. You've got 100%. You are a completionist.
I think that was all the coins.
I'm pretty sure.
Reason, I feel like I've gotten 166 before, but let us know if we missed one coin somewhere. Or maybe we took one out or something. I don't know. But, yeah, that's a lot of coins, though. So that was the ending of the game.
We should you should get killed so we can see the game over screen as well.
Yeah, we should do that too. All right, so we'll just run through and we will do that real quick.
Because that also has some nice art. Why don't you also jump at a pin so we can show what happens?
Yeah.
Yeah, there you would take damage, and we did have checkpoints originally. I don't think we even used... No, we did use checkpoints in at least one room. Yeah, but if you die, you are just teleported back to the room, the start of the room. And there's Joe's pumpkin that says game over.
And so that's our game over screen. Okay, so we're just going to check out some of the artwork and some of our preliminary files here, just so you guys can see a little bit more in depth the design process for this game jam. So this was the final original level design that we did. So you can see that we did everything on a grid, and it's a 64 by 64 is the base size for each grid square. And this is our combined designs. Some of it was Ed's design, some of it was my design. And you can see this was the first room. Not too much changed between that and the final version. There might have been a few little tweaks, but you might see some of the changes that happen. And obviously, like this right here, these are pacers, these are coins. I mean, you can probably figure all that out. And just the black lines are the platforms. So yeah, it didn't change too much besides a lot of tweaks. And obviously there's not quite as many of these birds as we had in the original design. It was found to be too difficult. And like the positions of all these were changed drastically. The positions of the platforms were changed a lot. But we just wanted to show you guys this was as polished as it got before we finally decided on design. And this is what we traced into Godot and then edited from there. And you can see this room changed entirely,
completely
right?
Different, yeah.
Yeah, the way that this was designed was that you were supposed to be running through here, being chased by this floater. That was the idea behind it. But it turned out that you could just kill the floater and then just kill these guys, and they were shooting this way, right? So they were just supposed to be sort of acting as walls to get through. And we tried to figure out a way to make that the fear of being chased by a floater to make that work, but we couldn't do it too easily. So yeah, Ed just redesigned this room, and that was the room that you saw in the final version of the game. And originally this had some shooters on each side that shot at you when you dropped down, but that was proved to be too cheap because sometimes the bullets would be right here, right when you landed, right? So you would just get hit very unfairly. So we redesigned this entire room. Besides that, a lot of it didn't really change. And we also added the big birds here after the fact. But so we just wanted to show that real quick. Do you have any comments on that, Ed?
That chase section in room 6 actually made its reappearance in room 7 with the two big birds. I feel like that conveys a lot of the same feelings of all of a sudden a bird coming out of nowhere, and you're like, oh god, I gotta get out of here, because you're also doing platforming challenges at the same time. Anyway,
yeah, I think I agree with that.
Yeah, but no, I think you covered it all. Good job.
So I wanted to go over some of the animations real quick as well. Actually, while we're still on the topic of room design, we should probably just finish up with that. So this was the file this was the final file that I was using to make the artwork, or as we called stickers, for the final game. So what I did was I just cropped this out, like this screen out by itself, and then I cropped out this screen out by itself, and we named them in a neat way. From top left to bottom right, and then we just pasted them over in each room. So this is just room 2, for instance, and you can see the grid that I used to make sure everything lined up properly, everything lined up nice, and I've got some sub measurements on there. So that's the grid, and then you can see this is what the final version actually looks like in the game, because this is without the grid. And you can see the line art and the color are separated, and then we have the background on there just so we can see what it looks like. But for most of it, I had that turned off. And what I did, though, was we had this here first. This was just a screenshot from Godot that I stretched out. We can actually make this more opaque, so you can see the actual screenshot here. So this was what I just screenshotted in the editor. And then what I did was we just drew a rough drawing over that. Actually, Actually, no, I don't think there's anything. I probably deleted the rough layer that had all the actual rough drawings on it for this file, but it doesn't really matter. I mean, I essentially drew this on top of it with the line art and then colored it in, right? And then we don't need this anymore once we've got the line art done. And so that's what you wind up with. Yeah. So that's how that process went.
Yeah, for a game of this size, that was a great idea, a great way to do it.
And then we're just going to go over some of the animations real quick, just so you guys can see. We use Clip Studio Paint for all the animations in our games at this point. And we are just going to show. So here's the idle. It actually has no animation. I'd probably make an animation for it if we were going to make the game more polished, but that's just to start, so you get the idea. And also I drew the characters way too big. I think all of them I did, the enemies as well as the main player, because when you shrink it down, you lose a lot of the detail. So I drew them really big, but if we ever did need the artwork at this size, we could have, we'll have it. But also, I would probably make the outlines on the characters. I know they look thick here, but they actually, the thickness of the lines doesn't show up that well in game. So I think all of the lines, I think, should probably be thickened up, including the outline around the entire character, because I wanted to use that to make the character pop. But really, it's only about 1 pixel wide in the game, and all the interior lines are like half a pixel wide. Like, you barely even see the lines. So I think the line art needs to be thickened up. While it won't look as good at this size, it'll look better when it's shrunk down. So that's one thing that I would change and redo if we were to polish the game more. So anyway, that's the idle animation, or lack thereof animation. So then we've got the run animation. Now we're running this on Clip Studio Paint Pro, which is the version that Ed has on his computer, which is what we're recording from. I guess I have the version that's one step ahead of that. So we don't have all the animation functions. So I'm not going to be able to show everything without drastically changing all the files, which we didn't want to take the time to do. So we're just gonna have to scrub through, and you're not going to be able to see everything animate as much as I would like. But we're just going to bear with it, and hopefully you guys will bear with us here. So we have a 4-frame animation for the run animation. You can see it playing forwards and backwards here, and so that's what we did. These are completed drawings. There were some rough in betweens there. So this is the jump animation. This would probably have a run to jump animation, as well as maybe even a separate idle to jump animation that would precede this if we did a fully animated version of the game. But the player just immediately jumps to this, or immediately skips to that frame of the animation when you hit the jump button. We also have a fall. Yeah, there it is. So this only happens when the player reaches a Y that is greater than the point where they jumped or fell off from. To put that in simpler terms, if you fall off a ledge, it'll go immediately to this fall animation, this fall frame here. And if you jump and your character goes lower than the point where you jumped from, it'll also flip to this animation. So hopefully that will explain that. Then we've got the hurt there. And I'm just running through all the stuff that we actually used in game. So here's one of the slash animations. So I'm just going to play it through by dragging through, so you can see that's what one of the slash animations looks like. And I'm just going to pull all the slash animations up. So I drew them on top of each other like this, so that I could make them look nicely as they played against each other, because they're going to be overlapping each other as they play. So I wanted them to look aesthetic as they were playing through. So that's the reason why I did it that way, and that's pretty much it for that file. Then there's this is the pacer animation, so you guys can see it up close. And then we've got the pumpkin here, and this frame right here is where the fireball launches, because it's supposed to be the candle launching off. It's kind of hard to make that out though when you're looking at the tiny. When we shrunk it down in size in game, he's a lot tinier. And yeah, we're not going to bother showing any other animations or the floater or anything. I just wanted to show one more thing. So this was, I referred back to this again and again and again, and I know it looks really crappy, but this was the mock-up where I tested out a lot of colors and what the enemies looked like against each other, against the player, and I would click and drag on these things like this guy. I'm going to grab the move tool. I usually just press V on. This is going to move. Yeah, this will work. The shortcuts are different on Ed's computer. But anyway, so I would just grab the characters and move them around and see what they look like against each other, against different backgrounds. And I would just use this to test out And yeah, I highly recommend doing this if you're developing a game. I mean, it seems really obvious, but in our first game, I actually did not start with this. I actually just started making assets and expected that they would just fit together very well. And I had to put a lot of band-aids on it later, and it cost me a lot of time. And the game, our original game, Inferno Racket, just does not look as good as it could if I had just done this in the beginning. Just made it doesn't have to be anything really too fancy. You just need to mess around with the values and the colors and make sure that everything's going to read, and what needs to pop will pop, and that everything's going to look good together and maintain a sense of the same style. So, and here's where I also drew the win screen and the game over screen, which I showed earlier. So, and we were originally going to have spikes in the game, which you can see right there. So these were just some, this was just what I used when I was making anything new for the game. And I tried to put everything in the very, very beginning, all the elements that I thought we were going to use. I did really rough versions. So you can see the rough version of the pacer, like right next to this guy, like right here. So that's, it was just a quick rundown of the artwork and animation and how it was created. So if you guys have any questions, or if you have any kind of critiques of how I did it, if you could do it better, any kind of comments at all, please do leave them in the comments below. We'd appreciate that. And yeah, I know Ed didn't have too much to say here, but and if you had any comments about the game design or the segment previous to this one, same thing. If you have any critiques, constructive negative critiques or constructive positive critiques, anything that you want to say about it, and if you've played the game, let us know what you thought.
Again, be sure to grab it in the description. It is on itch.io.
And it's free to play. And we like you.